All right, let's dive into something we all experience but rarely think about: how we actually grow and change throughout our lives. It's this incredible journey we all share, but the mechanics behind it, they're absolutely fascinating. So let's get into it. So let's kick things off with a question. You've heard these phrases before, right? A teenager has a growth spurt. A character in a movie gets character development. We kind of use these words like they're interchangeable, but in the science of what makes us us, they mean two totally different things. And understanding that difference, that's the key that unlocks this whole topic.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to nail down the real difference between growth and development. Then, we'll check out the blueprint that development follows, some really cool rules that guide it, the factors that shape our own unique journeys, and finally, we'll look at the big map of a human life, stage by stage.
Okay, let's get right to the heart of it. Growth versus development. They sound similar, they're definitely related, but trust me, they are not the same thing. One's all about quantity, and the other is all about quality. So first up, we've got growth. The easiest way to think about this is anything you can measure with a tape measure or a scale. It's the purely physical, quantitative stuff. Getting taller, gaining weight. It's all about size. But, and this is a big one, this process doesn't just go on forever. For the most part, it stops once we hit physical maturity. Now, development. This is where things get really interesting. Development is the qualitative change. See, it's not just about getting bigger. It's about becoming more complex, more organized, more skilled. It's the whole shebang: our intellect, our emotions, our social skills. And unlike growth, development is a continuous, lifelong journey. It literally goes from the womb to the tomb.
So let's really put these side by side. Growth, it's quantitative, you can measure it directly. Development, it's qualitative, you have to observe it. Growth is just one piece of the puzzle, while development is the entire holistic picture. But the biggest difference? Growth stops. Development is a continuous process for your entire life. So the key takeaway is this: growth is a part of development, but development is so much more than just growth.
Okay, so if development is this massive, lifelong process, does it just happen randomly? No way. It actually follows a pretty predictable blueprint, a set of core characteristics that apply to all of us. Let's unpack that blueprint. Now, this might look a little complicated at first glance, but it's really just a map of the general rules of development. It shows how it's a product of both our genes and our environment, and how it's all integrated. It looks like a lot, I know, but let's just focus on two of the most important principles to see how it works. First off, development is cumulative. The best way to think about it is like building a house. You can't put up the walls before you've laid a solid foundation, right? It's the same with us. A baby learns to sit up before they can stand, and they stand before they can walk. Every single new skill is built on top of what came before. It's a constant process of addition. Second, and this is so important, development is individualized. Even though we all follow that same predictable pattern, sitting, then standing, then walking, the rate at which we hit those milestones is completely unique. Some kids walk at 10 months, some at 15 months, and both are perfectly normal. Our own personal developmental clock is just that, our own. So we know development follows a pattern, but what's really wild is that it also follows these specific directional rules. They're almost like laws of physics, but for being human. The first rule has a super fancy name, the cephalocaudal law. It sounds complicated, but it literally just means head to toe. Development starts at the top and works its way down. Think about a baby. First, they get control of their head, then they can use their arms and hands, and only after that do they get control of their legs to crawl or walk. It's a top-down process, plain and simple. And the second rule, the proximo-distal law, which just means near to far. Development starts at the center of the body and moves outward. The spinal cord develops early on, right? So a baby can move its whole arm way before it can master the delicate, fine motor skills of using its fingers. It's a center-out process. Which brings us to this really cool way to visualize the whole thing. Development isn't just a straight line from point A to point B. It's actually more like a spiral. As we get older, we're constantly revisiting earlier skills and challenges, but we're doing it at a higher, more complex level. We are always building and refining. So we've got this blueprint, we've got these rules, but what's actually fueling the engine? What factors influence this incredible journey? Well, this brings us to one of the most classic debates in all of psychology. This diagram shows a ton of factors that shape who we become, from our internal biology to external things like our diet, exercise, and who we hang out with. It looks like a lot to take in, but we can actually simplify all of this down into two big categories. And here they are, nature and nurture. You've heard of this. Nature is our heredity. It's the genetic hand we're dealt. Nurture is our environment, literally everything we experience from the moment of conception onward. For years, people argued, which one is it? But today, we know that's the wrong question. Development is a product of the constant dynamic dance between the two. Okay, last section. Let's zoom all the way out and look at the big picture. How do we map this entire lifelong journey of development? Well, we break it down into stages. This flowchart gives us a fantastic overview. The whole journey starts before we're even born, in the prenatal stage. Then, after birth, you can see the progression: infancy, childhood, adolescence, and then all the different phases of adulthood. Each of these stages has its own unique challenges and its own special characteristics. And that leads to this really powerful concept called a developmental task. The idea here is that in each stage of life, there are certain jobs we need to do or skills we need to master. Learning to walk as a baby, figuring out who you are as a teenager, maybe building a career as an adult. When you successfully tackle these tasks, it not only makes you happy, it sets you up for success with whatever's coming next. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this thought. Development isn't just something that happens to babies and kids. It is happening to you right now. Whether you're learning a new skill for work, navigating a friendship, or planning for your future, you are actively in the middle of this incredible lifelong process. So the real question is, what developmental task are you working on today?